Welcome to this month's Greg Griffith Leadership Podcast. Join Greg Griffith as we together learn what it means to be leaders of our world as we faithfully love and faithfully lead. Like, share, rate, and review this podcast with your friends and others of influence, for they too are looking for people like you to help them lead and love day to day. Without further ado, here is your host, Greg Griffith.
Well, hey, everyone. It is great to be back with you today and super excited. You're going to love our guest today. He is just an amazing man of faith who is one that's really poured into my life quite a bit with leadership, but with also life and laughter and love. And my faith has been inspired by him. So you're going to love this one, but I want to invite and remind you, first of all, thank you so much for listening. So grateful for that. Second, share this, rate it. That just really helps us get out. So share this on whatever platforms you use. But without further ado, I want to introduce to all of you Dan Hoppen. Dan is this amazing man who has this mind that is strategic and fun, and he's always just willing to help and to serve. I think we met first here at church at King of Kings. He was one of our deacons, which for us means he does communion and leads through that. And then he became one of my intercessors, which means he's a guy that just once a month we spend some time in intentional prayer together with a couple other guys. And then he and I share another love of food. And he is just one that also has been pouring into the Omaha food community and restaurant community. And really been a blessing. I think a lot of our restaurants, especially through COVID, have at least survived and maybe even thrived during COVID. No time you wouldn't have thought, just because of some of the work you've been doing and being out there. And he's one of the most humble, gentle-hearted guys that I know. But two, he's also a guy, lastly, I'm going to say this, that he will outspice you under the table. Like, I've never met someone that can eat as spicy as a food as him. There's one other guy that I think you and him would be really close, my friend Ryan. But married. How many years you been married now?
About 2.5 years.
2.5 years. And you have a dog?
We have a dog, Benny. He's almost a year old now.
Oh, man.
And I just want to say real quick, first, it's an honor to be on the podcast. Thank you so much for having me as a guest. And everything you said in that wonderful lead-in is like the oversell of oversells on me, except for maybe the spicy food part. I'll accept that as truth. Everything else was probably a little more flowery than I deserve. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, man. Well, this is going to be fun. It's going to be great. I think you're going to love this. And let's just dive in. So, Dan, tell us a little bit about your growing up, your family, and then too, like, maybe when did faith start becoming just kind of real, and what are the rhythms, habits? Because I will say, and we'll talk about this, you're a 20-something-year-old who's living
31.
31.
I'm
oh,
old.
Well, that changes the entire dynamic.
Know, yeah.
Oh, shoot. I got to find a new guest.
You don't want me on the podcast anymore?
But I've known you in your late 20s.
Yes.
You're a 31-year-old, but you're in that generation that everyone is looking and saying, where are they at in faithfulness? And you're here every week and you're living out your life walking with Jesus. So where'd that come from? Growing up, all those things.
Yeah, I think it was something that was a rhythm that my parents established growing up. Faith was very important in our house. We went to church every week. We consistently talked, whether it was around the dinner table, whether it was just in regular conversation. We talked about faith, and we would come home from church and we would discuss what had been preached in the sermon and everything. But I think like a lot of people who grow up in the church, when I got the opportunity to go to college, and all of a sudden that decision to pursue faith was my own instead of something that my parents told me we're going to do this, I kind of let that go by the wayside. And not that I went crazy away from faith or anything, but it was not a priority to me. I did not go to church every week. I was not in communication with God really at all. And I think just as I kind of matured and really kind of established what my life looked like post-college when it came to my career and really starting to get serious about, okay, now I don't just want a girlfriend. I want to find my wife. I want to get married. Yeah. Like once I started actually becoming an adult, I was like, I can't live life by myself. Like if I can't find a job, I can't find a wife, I can't find and build a home and manage all my relationships if it's just me.
Yeah.
I don't have that ability. I don't have that power. And I really started leaning back into my faith. And I think that's when I made that intentional decision that faith is going to be important to me.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. It's interesting. I think that's a somewhat of a common step, right? Like of kind of going through college and kind of, just sowing your oats and figuring out life and really about you. And I think all of us can look at college students and say, yes, it is a time that it should be about you. You're trying to figure yourself out, and that's okay. Don't apologize for that. But then there gets to be a point where it's like, I can't do this every day. And that's when you start to say, what are my future goals and my future plans, and where girlfriends turn into potentially wives or not. Right. And, where you start to look, and it goes from jobs into careers, and then it goes from, every day to a lifestyle. Right. And so, yeah, that's really, really good. What do you think what helped you as you moved from kind of going to, this is a casual spot, to like, I'm going to live for this? Like, what was something that you say was a real good catalyst or a help? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was my writing. Writing is just something that I'm very passionate about. It's probably the thing that I do most for fun.
Yeah.
Whether it's writing about food or writing about sports. My career previous to this, one of my careers was a sports writer. I did that for about 10 years. So I've just always really enjoyed writing. And I think once I started, I took that passion and I found a way to apply my faith to it, where I just started researching biblical characters and looking into their pasts and how God responded to them and how he led them and how he empowered them. And I just started this Google Doc on my computer. And every night I would, once Sarah, who now my wife, then she was my girlfriend and eventually my fiance. But when our nights would end and I would go home from her place or she would go home from mine, I would spend an hour and a half, 2 hours every night just getting into the word, really digging into specific verses and just kind of writing stream of consciousness in this Google Doc. And that was really what kind of took my faith from, okay, I'm going to church every week. This is fine, but I'm not really getting deeper than that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I started to view the Bible as this just awesome thing to explore.
Wow.
Rather than just like a rule book, which it was like unlocking like the gates to Disney World almost. Sweet. Where you're sitting on the outside kind of looking in going like, oh, that kind of looks cool, but I can't really tell what's going on in there. And then those gates get open and it's just like, look at all this. I just want to do it all at once.
Wow. So is that was that the impetus to start one of the things I forgot to say in your bio, I'm sorry, is that you are also an author. You have a book, and is that what started your first book?
Yeah. And it was never intended to be a book. It was all just writing that I was doing because I was exploring my faith and I was exploring what God did in other people's lives, especially exploring their faults and their shortcomings, because that's something that I really identify with. Is a lot of times I feel like, how could God love this messy person? Because I know all my faults. I see them all. I'm very aware of them. And so that was something that really resonated with me. Yeah. And so I just really dove in and really started researching all these different people. And no thoughts of ever publishing it or anyone ever even seeing it, much less,
Well, it's good. I've seen it. God's Broken Heroes is the first book. And that's available. Is that available on your website? Is that where they go to it?
Yes, and on Amazon.
And on Amazon. Okay. So, and it's really great. And then are you allowed to share about your second book yet or no?
Yeah.
You can. Okay. You got another one coming out.
Yes.
And what's that one called?
It's called Redeemed, Our Lives as Sinners and Saints. And that should come out mid to late September. So we still got a little time on that one.
All right. And that one is, I have read an early copy of that, and that's super good too. So, so let's talk about this. So you're 31 years old and now a author of 2 books that are out there. And let's dive a little bit into just some of that world, if that's okay.
Sure.
First, let's talk. What do you love about writing?
I don't know what it is. It's just always come very easy for me. I mean, it's a gift that God gave me. Like that, it was always the subject that in English that I excelled at in school. Like I said, my first job was in sports writing. I've had several copywriting jobs. In marketing. There's something about being able to tell a story that people don't know that is just, it's almost intoxicating to me. And I think that's what I love to do most. Like when I was a sports writer, it wasn't like writing the game story. It was, okay, you see the quarterback every week, but what is he like? How did he get here? What is his family like? What is his life like when he's off the field? Like get to know the person underneath the helmet was always kind of the thing that was really exciting for me. And I think, that kind of plays into the writing that I did for these books and stuff is like everybody can look at like Noah, for instance, and be like, oh, no, or Noah built an ark and, he survived on it for so long and then, repopulated the earth. Noah is a super interesting, like really complex character. And I think we all kind of know him and we know Jonah and we know Moses. We know all these amazing people at a very surface level. But when you actually kind of dive in and look at their histories and look at their specific actions and how God responded to them, how God empowered them, this actual like character starts to flesh out. And I think that's what really excites me about writing is that's my way of introducing something deeper to people where they can take a topic that they think they understand and present it in a whole new way that just provides deeper understanding.
Yeah. So quick little just biblical fun fact that someone opened my eyes to this years ago. But, genealogies in the Bible, I always just kind of skip over. Right. It's like I can't pronounce the names and they are really long and I don't really understand it. So then someone said, whoa, Greg, you're missing it. And they said, if you look at the genealogy, Noah was alive while Adam was alive.
Whoa, really?
Right? So it wasn't like, hey, Dad or Grandpa, tell me about Adam and Eve. It was, hey, and I don't know what he called them.
Right.
But he heard the story firsthand of creation, right? And so then the one who was the one who to repopulate the earth, the one who came after the flood, was able to tell his kids and his family, not from I heard about, but like, yeah, he told me this. And so, and we still have that today. And so what fascinating. Yeah. There's so much back there.
And just even you saying that adds more context because I'm thinking, okay, that shortens the amount of time that I, at least to my understanding, knew there was between creation and God deciding he had to wipe out creation.
Right.
So
right.
that just adds a whole new layer. So, you're just talking about a genealogy, one simple part of a genealogy. Right. By understanding that one fact, it opens up like 5 or 6 different pathways that you can just go on deep dives on. That's what I love about the Bible is there's just so much. There's so much information, even if you just read it at a surface level and for what it is. But if you want to go down the rabbit hole, there are rabbit holes on top of rabbit holes in this book.
Have you ever thought about? So I know God's Broken Heroes is a Bible study book, and then we've got the Redeemed, Sinner, and Saint. Right? Have you ever looked into at all like any like kind of fiction, like Christian fiction? You know what I mean?
I've thought about it, and there are some Christian fiction books I really liked. Like growing up, I was a huge fan of Ted Dekker.
Okay.
I haven't really seriously explored that yet. I think I kind of, like I said earlier, like what I really enjoy about writing is unearthing a deeper understanding of something that already exists.
Sure.
So that's usually a person, or maybe it's an idea, or maybe it's even God. But I have written fiction before, mostly like growing up and stuff. And I think that's an I haven't thought about that in a long time. That's an interesting thought.
What made me think about it was you're saying your love of when you were a sports writer, helping people discover the guy under the helmet. And I just thought, oh man, that would be really kind of cool to like discover, someone who's discovering more about faith or something like that. I didn't know. And you're right. There's some really good Christian fiction. I love, Paul Meyer has some great Christian fiction. There's also some really bad Christian fiction. So yeah,
we won't name them.
Yeah, no, of course not. But yeah. Oh wow. So that's really, really cool. Okay. So let me ask this question. In your what are some challenges of writing? I mean, I think non-writers, we can all think of some, but I'm curious, as an author who's successful, what's a challenge that you have in writing?
I think the biggest one is finding the time, especially now with a full-time job and being married, and I don't have kids yet, so that would add on a whole nother layer. But basically, there have been, when I do my writing, I have to set aside time at night because, like I said before, before I was married, I had time every night to just be by myself. Now I don't have that. So I set aside certain nights where Sarah and I talk about it, and I say, hey, Sarah, are you okay with me writing tonight? And she's always very willing to give of that time. But I love spending time with her, and I want to be respectful of her wishes to spend time with me. So I think that's probably been the biggest challenge. And then I would say, and this is a pretty personal thing, but for me, I'm such I just kind of write what's on my heart. And I usually don't, when I write, I don't give a whole lot of thought to it. And that's exactly what I did with this first book. But when I did the second book, that actually went through a publishing house, Concordia Publishing House. And so they wanted to see an outline, and they wanted to be like, okay, well, what are we covering in each chapter? And so actually having to be a little bit more strategic and thinking ahead of time challenged me in a new way. And then once I actually started writing, I was like, hey, this is easier now. Maybe I should just do this all the time.
Wow. Wow. Fascinating. Yeah. So then too, what do you do? What, you've had writer's block, right?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So what do you do to get through that?
A lot of times, I mean, especially when I'm writing about something spiritually, I'll come to God and just say, God, what are you trying to show me here? A lot of times I'll look at one of my Bibles and kind of like look at the footnotes or something and try and get inspiration from, okay, what are other reputable sources saying about this? Sometimes I'll go to Google, which obviously can be dangerous because there's a lot of misinformation on the internet. But if you find reputable sources,
I thought it was all true.
Everything you read on the internet is true, especially on Wikipedia. But if you find reputable sources, there is a lot of good information out there. And sometimes just reading what someone else thinks or what someone else has put out there, that doesn't, like, I don't regurgitate their thoughts, but it spurs something, a different thought in my mind. Like going back to that example you gave a couple minutes ago again about the genealogy thing. Yeah. Like that sparked a whole new thought about the amount of time between creation and between the flood. Like I hadn't realized how short that was. That makes me want to explore that more. So I think when I get writer's block, it's just go to someone else to get inspired, whether that is God, whether that's another writer, whether that's even, I can go to Sarah, my wife, and be like, hey, Sarah, I'm stuck here. What do you think about this? Here's a verse. When you read that, what's the first thing that pops to your mind? And I think that's kind of my way that I overcome those times when the words just aren't coming.
Yeah. Do you and your family, do you have them review your writing, your wife, your parents, family, siblings? No? Yes.
To the extent that they want to.
Okay.
Basically, I put it out there and say, hey, if you want to read this, you can, but I'm not going to ask you to read a 250-page book.
Right.
So, especially, I would say more so on the first book when I submitted it to an editor and had it professionally edited and everything, but I wanted to make sure everything made sense. So yeah, I had Sarah and my mom and I think my sister read that one all the way through.
Okay.
This time around, when I have like a team of professional editors and the book goes through doctrinal review and everything like that,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more hands off, where I'm just like, hey, you guys want to read this? Great. If not, that's totally cool.
That's great. Oh man. All right, let's jump into another love of yours. Food.
Do love food.
Yeah, oh, man. Yeah. And by the way, so, and you post about this publicly, that your love of food really is your drive to work out so that you can keep loving the food that you want to love. Right. And so yesterday was Thursday afternoon, I was heading to one of now my favorite pizza places that was highly recommended by you, Virtuoso Pizza here in Omaha.
Absolutely the best.
Oh man, I'm not a honey guy, but I had that spicy hot honey pizza. Never would have thought that pizza and honey work together. Wow. I don't know if I can have pizza without honey now.
It's like peanut butter on a burger. It doesn't make sense until you have it. And then it still doesn't really make sense in your brain, but your taste buds are like, this is fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was, I was like, I told my daughter, my oldest, who loves honey and tea and all these things. And I said, and she loves pizza and food with me. And I said, we're going to try this. She goes, Dad, that doesn't sound good. And I said, oh, you wait, you're going to love it. So anyways, I'm heading to pick up my pizza and I look over and you're running in the hot part of the day. It was like 96 degrees. I think I texted you and said, dude, it's 96. You inspire me because it was hot and you were going. But let's talk about your love of food. First, how did that develop? How did you start and say, yeah, I really like an eclectic variety? Because you do. I see your posts and you eat everything.
So it really started when I was a sports writer, because we'd travel for all Nebraska's. I covered the Nebraska football team, so we'd travel for all their road games, and I loved food and I loved eating around restaurants in Omaha. So it became like my responsibility among our team of writers. It was like, when we go on the road, Dan, you need to find, we have 2 dinners. You need to find us the best dinner spots. So that's where that passion kind of came, and then. I don't know, just the more stuff I experienced, the more I was just like, there's so much out there that I haven't tried. Like, there's Indian food beyond chicken tikka masala. I want to experience that. What's this thing? A tasting menu. I don't know what that is. I need to try it. Like tartare. I'll never forget the time that Sarah and I tried that for the first time. And it was a intimidating experience a little bit. But when we had it, we're like, oh my gosh, this is so good. So I think it's, just over the last couple of years, really, I've just tried to be open to everything. Like, if someone that I trust food-wise recommends something, I am not going to say no. I'll go try a veggie burger if someone says it's amazing. I'll go outside my normal boundaries because there's so much good food out there. And until you try it, you don't know if you like it or not.
Yeah. So help us out, because you use 2 phrases that I've never, I don't know. So define for me, what's a tasting menu?
The tasting menu is the greatest thing in the world, because you go to a restaurant, and these are usually higher end restaurants, and so it's going to be a higher price point, but you don't order anything. You place yourself in the hands of the chef, and there's like, it depends on the restaurant, but usually 5 or 6 courses, and they progressively take you through this menu where and there are smaller courses, but it adds up to a big meal. So you start off kind of light, usually with like, a couple small plates, maybe move into a piece of fish, then get like a steak or a pork shank or something like that, like heavy for an entree, and then have a dessert. But it's just awesome because the meal usually ends up lasting an hour and a half or 2 hours. And you really are forced to slow down and like enjoy the meal and experience it, because it's not just coming out, in one wave or two waves if you get an appetizer. It's really fun. I highly recommend it.
Okay, and then second words you use that I don't exactly know what it means, tartare.
Raw beef.
No.
It doesn't necessarily have to be beef, I guess. It's just raw meat, but it's raw chopped meat that you just eat, or you can eat it on like a baguette.
Okay.
I specifically remember the first time Sarah and I had it, and it was just presented. It is just raw meat on the table, and it was like, oh, this is safe to eat, I guess. It's on a restaurant menu. It must be safe, and it's absolutely delicious. I know it sounds scary, and taking that first bite is usually a little unnerving, but I've gotten to the point now where I've had it so many times. I love it. If it's on a menu, I'm like, I want that.
What's the food that pushed you to your boundary the most, that you were like, I don't know that I really want to try this, and you liked it afterwards?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would definitely say one of them was going to Modern Love, which is Omaha's premier vegetarian and vegan restaurant.
Okay.
Like I got like tofu ribs there, and Sarah got a veggie burger and stuff, and like that's not stuff that I would normally go for. I'm very much a carnivore.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would like willingly go there, but like I know that a lot of people make that choice to go vegan, and I want to understand all people's experiences with food. So like I want to try that type of stuff. So like I went to a slider restaurant last week where you order 2 or 3 different sliders with your meal, and I got a vegan one. Not because I really that wouldn't have been my first choice, but I was like, I want to try this and see why other people like it.
Okay. All right. So let me ask this question then. So out of this love of food, now you have a very popular blog, Restaurant Hoppen, and then I would say one of the highest influencers that I've seen on a large Facebook group here in Omaha called Omaha Food Lovers. So when did it turn from going to these places to like, hey, I want to start this blog? And really your blog is, I wouldn't say your blog's a critique. Your blog's like a blessing and a help, and it helps people know the restaurant. Yeah. And also, actually, I think too is something that I think the owners of those restaurants are looking and saying, this has just been amazing. Mm-hmm. And so you come in and say, hey, if you're going to go here, this is what you got to try. And so when did it turn? Like, when did you start saying, I'm going to go from just experiencing it to like, I want to help other people experience what I've experienced?
I think I actually started doing the blog probably 5 or 6 years ago. And at that point, I did approach it more as like, I'm a restaurant reviewer. Like I'm going to look at every part of the experience. I'm going to tell you if it's too expensive. I'm going to tell you what dishes I didn't like and stuff. But as I got into it and I started to meet more restaurant owners and chefs, and especially since I started doing my podcast about 1.5 years ago, I've really developed a heart for these people. And I understand how hard they work and how slim the margins are, even for the most successful restaurants. Like restaurants that you think are just breaking the bank, they're not. No restaurant is. They are all just operating by the skin of their teeth. And I just love these people. Like individually, I love so many of them because I've gotten a chance to develop relationships with them. But just as a group, like you cannot be a chef or a restaurateur who gives it half. You have to go all in, and you really have to care about your craft. And I think as I developed this love for these people, I was like, I want to build them up. I don't want to do anything that brings them down. So people ask me sometimes, they say, Dan, you're just so positive all the time. Like, do you ever have a bad meal? Yes, I have bad meals. And yes, I have meals that I enjoy, but there are bad things about them. But I'm not going to go out of my way to trash someplace or to say something bad about an experience, because I just don't think that's constructive. Instead of saying this was bad, I would rather point to someone and say, hey, if you go to this restaurant, here are 3 things that are really good that I would recommend. The service here is awesome. You got to try this appetizer. And I think that became especially important once COVID struck.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I mean, you know, we were talk about restaurants getting by on the skin of their teeth.
Oh,
That's even in good times. And when all of a sudden they're really hurting because of COVID, it was like, okay, there's not a room to try and be taking restaurants down or saying anything negative. Like that's just kicking a wounded animal. Like it's not fair. So I just really try and stay positive and really try and think about, if I were operating this restaurant, how would I want someone to approach this meal? Like if they do have a problem, I don't want them saying it on a blog or something. Right. Say it to me personally and we'll make it better.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And that I think, so let me ask this, because I think what I heard you just saying is the relationships and the gifts that are imparted through those relationships and an empathy and an understanding of who they are. I mean, that's a biblical worldview right there, right? It's not about what I'm consuming. It's about what I'm contributing. Right. And really that's a biblical worldview. And, do you think that subconsciously shaped that, or do you think you knew, hey, this is just part of my biblical worldview?
I think that does shape how I approach restaurants, just especially the more that I've studied Jesus and how forgiving he was and how just any biblical character, not even those approached by Jesus when he was here on earth, but just anyone, they all screw up so much and yet God forgives them. So I'm like, who am I to criticize a restaurant if they burn my appetizer? Like, you know, it's okay.
Yeah. Because that chef, whoever it is, whether it's the owner or not, but it's a real person with a real family, right, who's having a real day, and it wasn't like they're intentionally going, I'm just burning your food. So that was a mistake, right, and we've all made them. Yeah.
And now, especially now that I'm working at King of Kings and I have that title attached to my name, I've kind of started to review what I do with restaurants and what I do with my podcast as ministry, because these people, when I write reviews about their places, when I bring them on the podcast, when I have conversations with them, they know I'm a Christian. Yeah. And so whatever I do or say reflects on Jesus one way or another. So I going to show them just everything, all the love that Jesus has to offer, or am I going to show them something that makes them say, I don't want any part of Christianity? That's bad. Right. And I've had some really interesting, productive conversations about Christ with these people, some of whom are Christians already, some of whom are not, that would not have happened if I had just come across and, you know, been overly critical.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, favorite genre of food?
Oh, Italian pasta.
Italian pasta. All right. Yeah. There you go. There you go. Yeah, I wasn't sure where you were going to go with that one.
I wasn't sure either. I almost said pizza, but upon further review, pasta. But basically just all Italian food is tremendous.
It is. It is really good. All right. Now, I know also that you're not a lover of chains because we've learned that from you picking our restaurants here, though we have not had you out yet for one of our dude lunches.
It just hasn't worked out.
Hasn't worked out. I know.
Jury duty ruined it last week.
Oh man, totally. But I do know there's one chain that you do love, and that's Taco Bell, right?
When I say
love is probably an overstatement.
It's a shameful love. I haven't eaten at Taco Bell in probably 3 years. I just don't eat fast food really at all. Right. Because so I place a very high priority on my health, like you said, with me running. So I figure if I'm going to eat bad and I'm going to eat out, I'm going to go support a local place and do it. I understand that chains have their significance, but yes, Taco Bell, it's totally shameful. I know it's garbage.
It was my first job. Good. I worked there. It was my first job. So I worked at Taco Bell. So menu item of Taco Bell that is your favorite, whether it's still on a menu or off, doesn't matter. What do you get? What's your go-to when you get there?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember what it's called anymore, but I think it's like the double-decker chalupa or something.
Okay.
It's a hard shell taco, but then it's got a
wrapped
chalupa
with the soft shell.
Yeah, the soft shell on the outside, and it's got like cheese and like some kind of ranch sauce in between.
Yeah.
That and the Crunchwrap Supreme. Get one of each.
There you go. All right. Mine was the chili cheese burrito.
So, that was also a winner.
So, all right, Dan, where can our listeners, this has been so much fun, loved it. Where can they find you, follow you? Where are you at?
On pretty much any social media. It's just my name, Dan Hoppen.
Yep.
Hoppen. Restauranthoppen.com is where you can find the restaurant stuff. And then, yeah, if you just Google or go on Amazon and search for God's Broken Heroes, that's where the book is.
All right. I promise you start finding him and following him, you're going to have an epic time, and it is awesome. Dan, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Greg. It was my honor.
Thank you for being a part of this month's Greg Griffith Leadership Podcast. Join Greg next month for leadership insights to faithfully love and faithfully lead. Now go be terrific today.